Welcome to a new podcast, Crime Monkeys. I am Connor.
And I am Franklin.
We are going to be covering sensitive topics such as
rape, cannibalism, murder, and substance abuse. So if you don't feel comfortable with these, we recommend to not listen. Let's dive into this disturbing case.
Imagine you are driving and suddenly feel hungry. So you decide to stop at the side of the road at a barbecue pop-up stand to get a delicious hamburger and enjoy it.
But later you find out it was human meat. This is the case of Joe Metheny.
In the case of Joe Metheny, we will be covering his disturbing upbringing motives, what made him start killing, and gruesome details of this sick, twisted, creepy man.
We will cover his capture, his confessions in which he proudly admits this heinous acts that police had no idea about, and finally, his time incarcerated.
What caused Joe Metheny to do all this killing?
To answer this question, we will have to start at the beginning. Joseph Metheny was born March 2nd, 1955 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was raised in an unstable household. His father, who was an alcoholic, abused his family and later on died when Joe was 6 years old. His mother had to work extra shifts to support all her 6 children, and she did not have time to give the love Joe needed.
It sounds like Joe went through a lot of neglect in his childhood. I also saw that he was enlisted in the Army when he was 18 years old in 1973.
Yes, that's correct. He claimed to serve time in Vietnam. However, it doesn't make sense because the involvement of the US in Vietnam was over. While being in the Army, that's when he started getting addicted to drugs and alcohol.
I heard his addiction to substances is what got him to meet his girlfriend. I also saw that they had a kid that was 6 years old. When one day, he came home from work as a truck driver to find out that both his girlfriend and his kid were gone. Joe Metheny went into a rage and began searching for them for many days. This is when his killing spree started.
We will continue this gruesome story after a message from our sponsors.
Need to get fit? In a judgment-free zone?
Platinum Fitness is here for you. You can join using our promo code.
We love Miss Emery for a 67% discount.
To get started, visit our website at www.com.net.org.pf/weloveemery.com. Now, let's dive back into the story.
Thank you for listening. Transitioning back to our case, let's dive into our murders. Joe Metheny kept searching for his girlfriend and son. He searched in a halfway houses and under bridges where she used to buy drugs, but found nothing.
Eventually, he came across 2 homeless men whom he believed were withholding information from him about the location of his family. Joe murdered both of them with an axe he brought along.
Afterward, Metheny allegedly noticed a fisherman who was nearby the scene. Joe thought the fisherman saw this murders happen, so he killed him just in case. As soon as he realized what he'd done, Metheny panicked and threw the bodies into the river to hide the evidence. Joe would later on develop a taste for murder.
Joe did get some information about his son's whereabouts, saying, "I found out about 6 months later she had moved on the other side of town with some bleep hole that had her out selling her for drugs. They got busted for drugs and they took my son away from them for child neglect and child abuse."
The crazy part of this story is that he was only arrested for half of these murders, but they dropped the case due to lack of evidence, and he even told law enforcement that he committed 3 other murders that night.
One of those murders were Kathy Ann Magazine. He claimed that he buried her near the factory where he worked. He returned 6 months later and put her head in a box and threw it away in the trash.
A year later, in 1996, Joe Metheny killed Kimberly Lynn Spicer in November. She was a single mother and a heroin addict. He lured her into his trailer and drove a knife through her chest.
Less than a month later, on December 8, 1996, he kidnapped and attempted to rape Rita Kemper, who was a drug addict. He lured her into his trailer to share drugs, and then she refused to have sex with him. So Joe chased her down, beat her, and dragged her back into the trailer. He then attempted to rape her. He also said to her, "I'm going to kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls."
Rita managed to escape through a window and notify the police. This was a very suspenseful moment, and her escape helped into the capture of Joe.
A couple weeks later, after Rita notified the police, Metheny asked a friend to help him move Kimberly Spicer's body, fearing someone would see it, which had been buried at his worksite. Later on, his friend notified the police and he was arrested on December 15, 1996.
Metheny confessed to several murders. He claimed to have thrown bodies in the Patapsco River, though none was ever found. He took police to the Magaziner's grave, where they found decapitated remains with much of the skull missing.
Joseph Metheny was convicted on the case where the victim Rita Kemper was able to escape. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison for attempted sexual assault and kidnapping in 1997.
In the year 1998, Joe would be sentenced to death for the murder of Kimberly Lynn Spicer, but this would later be reduced to life in prison without parole.
Oh yeah, I saw that they reduced it due to Metheny's defense team, where they argue that he was not in control of his actions due to his mental health issues.
That's correct. However, he was ultimately found guilty of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison.
From the moment Joe was arrested, he started confessing without hesitation. He sounded very calm, almost like he was very proud of his murders. He told investigators he killed at least 10 people, and that if they didn't catch him, he never would have stopped.
He claimed his first murder happened in 1976 after a bar fight with a man he said he killed and dumped, where no one could find. Then he went after homeless people and women and drug users. Easy targets, as he called them.
Also, I read a section where it said, when police asked Joe for names or details, Joe shrugged, and the only thing he gave them was a chillingly casual line. My first kill was in 1976.
During his interview, Metheny also revealed some disturbing information about what he'd done with the bodies after murdering his victims.
Metheny claimed to have mixed the woman's flesh with animal meat and turned them into burgers where he will sell it at a roadside stand. He commented, "I opened up a little pit beef stand. I had a real roast beef and pork sandwiches. They were very good. I cut the human meat and put it in some Tupperware bowls, then put it in a freezer. The human body taste was very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one could tell the difference."
It is unknown how many people consumed Metheny's burgers. Joe himself later said in an interview, "So the next time you're riding down the road and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich. Sometimes you never know who you may be eating.
Very disturbing. Metheny never showed any remorse whatsoever for the crimes he committed. He claimed that the only thing he regretted is that he never got to murder his ex-girlfriend and the men she ran off with.
In conclusion, in 1998, Joe was convicted of the murders of Kathy Magaziner and Kimberly Spicer, along with the kidnapping of Rita Kemper. The other cases had to be dropped due to lack of evidence.
Joe begged for the death penalty, saying he wanted to die for what he'd done. Instead, his sentence was later reduced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole.
While being in prison, in one of Metheny's confessions during a court case, he states the following.
I will tell you about myself at the present moment, which is being locked up. I'm 48 years old. I weighed about 450 pounds, around 6'5". It's not all fat. I've been locked up for almost 8 years now. But when one has been sentenced to life without parole, time doesn't matter anymore. I have no problem with being locked up, for no one put me here but myself. And I deserve to be right where I am at. My murder rampage started out as a revenge, but ended up as a passion for the taste of blood, the overwhelming sense of power one gets for taking the life of another.
This is a very disturbing scenario where you can clearly see that Joe does not have any regret towards the acts that he's done. We will continue after a short message from our sponsors.
Are you tired and need to study? Don't worry, Brain Boost is here.
Provided with vitamins to help brain function and 500 milligrams of caffeine.
Side effects may include shakiness, anxiety, delusions, and even death.
Sleep is temporary. Grades are forever. Get a boost. Brain Boost. Thanks for listening. You should definitely get a brain boost. Now, let's dive back into the case.
Joe Metheny died in his prison cell on August 5th, 2017, at the age of 62.
Oh, that means that he was in prison for 22 years. How did he die?
Well, he was found unresponsive by a prison guard around 3 p.m. and pronounced dead soon after, according to the General Shields, the spokesman for the Department of Public Safety and Correction Services. Now, you are probably thinking, he got killed by a fellow prisoner. You're wrong. Joe had his own prison cell, and officers said he died from natural causes.
Joe Metheny said the words, "I'm sorry will never come out, for they would be a lie. I am more than willing to give up my life for what I have done, to have God judge me and send me to hell for eternity."
Yeah, that makes me feel sick. This sentence is what makes some people question his death from natural causes, or if Joe did something to himself. But unless he somehow planned from a heart attack, which really was due to his eating habits and weight.
In the end, Joe Metheny died in prison, right where most people think he should have been. There wasn't some big moment of redemption or a final apology that made things right. It just ended the same way it had done for years, locked away, alone, and carrying everything he'd done with him. This story of Joe Metheny reminds us of how people have the potential to be evil with no morals.
It also teaches the importance of childhood trauma, which can have lasting effects on mental health.
In conclusion, Joe Metheny is a sick, evil man, the form for childhood trauma. His heinous actions were not all charged for, but he got what he deserved. He spent the rest of his life in prison. I'm Frank.
And I'm Connor. Thank you for listening to
Crime Monkeys. And see you in the next episode. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for early insights on new episodes.
If you have ever had any trauma and mental health issues, please text or call 988. This was Crime Monkeys.